You know the voice, not one you hear out loud, the one inside, the one that shows up at 3 in the morning when you're too tired to argue with it. It knows your worst memories. It knows every time you failed, every relationship you damaged, every moment you're ashamed of, and it uses your own voice to remind you. It sounds like you. It thinks like you. But it says things you would never say to someone you love. Here's what most people never notice about that voice. It has never once built anything. It has never given you an idea, never solved a problem, never made something beautiful. It only takes, it only destroys. It exists to use you. Marvel Comics built a god out of that feeling. They put it at the bottom of everything, beneath death, beneath hell, beneath the lowest place any soul can fall. And they give it one rule: it cannot create, it can only destroy. And to do even that, it needs a hand, a human being willing or broken enough to carry it. Its name is the One Below All. And if you understand what it actually is, you will understand something about that voice you've been fighting your whole life. The One Below All is Marvel's answer to a very specific question. What is the opposite of God? Not a villain, not an enemy, the actual opposite. Marvel already has the One Above All, their version of the capital G creator, the being who made everything, warm, infinite, creative. It exists above every plane of reality. The One Below All is what you find when you go the other direction, all the way down, past death, past the underworld, past every afterlife any hero has ever visited. You hit something that has no face and no name that sounds like a name. Something that exists before creation decided to create anything. Something that wants only one thing: for everything to stop. This isn't a new idea. Marvel didn't invent cosmic evil. But what writer Ewing did in the Immortal Hulk run starting in 2018 is give this being a specific set of rules. And the rules are what make it fascinating. Rule 1. The One Below All cannot create anything. Not one atom, not one thought. It lives in a place called the below place, the lowest plane in all of existence, and it cannot leave on its own. It has no hands. Rule number 2, it can possess. It can reach up into the living world and find someone already broken open, whether that's by grief, by trauma, by rage, someone with a crack in them just wide enough, and it can slide in. It's used gamma-irradiated humans as its instruments throughout Marvel history. The Leader, the Guild Hulk, monsters and failed experiments, people who were already suffering. Rule number 3, the connection to gamma radiation is not random. In Al Ewing's telling, gamma energy doesn't just cause mutations, it causes transformation. It takes whatever is already inside of you and makes it real. Your fear becomes a monster. Your guilt becomes a face. Your repressed self climbs out and walks around. And here's where it gets interesting. The One Below All didn't just pick Hulk characters at random. It has a specific relationship with Bruce Banner. It's been feeding on Banner's trauma since childhood, since before he ever saw a gamma bomb. Because Bruce Banner spent his entire childhood learning to disappear, to go somewhere inside himself where his abusive father couldn't reach him. He built a door into his mind to survive, and the One Below All found it. So I want you to sit with something for a moment. In the 4th century, a theologian named Augustine of Hippo wrote that evil is not a thing, it's an absence, a hole where something good used to be. He called it privatio bono, the privation of God. His argument was that evil has no creative power on its own. It cannot make anything. It can only exist by feeding on what does exist. It unmakes, it consumes, it needs a host. 1400 years later, the same logic shows up in how psychologists describe the inner critic, the voice of depression, inherited shame. It doesn't generate anything. It takes memories you already have and weaponizes them. It uses your own history against you. It sounds like you because it has no voice of its own. It cannot speak without borrowing yours. The One Below All is Augustinian theology drawn in comic book ink. It cannot create. It needs a vessel. It feeds on existing wounds. It cannot enter unless there's already a crack. And this is the part that makes Immortal Hulk not just a horror comic, but something stranger and more important. The way you stop it is not by fighting it. It's by refusing to be its hand. It's by transforming instead of destroying. By walking through the door instead of letting the door use you. Bruce Banner spent his entire life afraid of what's inside him. His father told him there was something wrong with him, something monstrous, something that needed to be contained or destroyed, and Bruce believed it. He spent decades trying to cage the Hulk, trying to suppress, eliminate, control the part of him that emerged when he was hurt, or scared, or furious. And the one below all fed on every minute of that. Every moment Bruce tried to disappear, the door opened a little wider. This is what Immortal Hulk gets right that almost no superhero comic has ever gotten right. The monster was never the Hulk. The monster was the belief that the Hulk needed to be destroyed. 3 moments. 3 times the pattern proves itself from a different angle. The first, early in Immortal Hulk, Bruce dies. He actually dies, and he passes through the green door into the below place. He sees what's waiting there, and what's waiting is not a monster that roars and charges. It's something that whispers. It knows everything he's ashamed of. It offers him a deal, surrender, and the pain stops. This is exactly how depression operates. Not with violence, with exhaustion. It doesn't attack you. It just waits until you're too tired to say no. The second, Guilt Hulk. One of Bruce's alternate personalities, a Hulk form that is pure self-punishment, skeletal, terrifying in a way that has nothing to do with strength. It exists not to hurt anyone else, but to torture Bruce. The one below all didn't create the Guilt Hulk. Bruce's childhood created it. The one below all just knew how to find the door. This is the moment the comic says something very specific. The cruelest voice in your head didn't come from nowhere. Taught it to you. Someone taught it to you. The third, Brian Banner, Bruce's dead father, possessed and used as a vessel by the one below all. It uses the father because that wound was never healed. The thing that hurts you most becomes the thing that can control you most completely. Unless you actually deal with it, not defeat it, not bury it, deal with it. By the time that third moment lands, you already know what I'm about to say. You felt this thesis before I stated it. You know those cracked walls in old houses? The ones that someone painted over instead of fixing the foundation? The crack comes back every time. It gets bigger because you can cover a crack, but you can't make a wall whole again just by hiding the damage. The one below all is every crack you have ever painted over. It doesn't matter how many layers you put on top. It finds the damage. It works through. The only way forward is to stop painting and start actually rebuilding. Bruce Banner spent 30 years painting over cracks. The one below all lived in every single one. Now, most people think the one below all is Marvel's Satan. Big cosmic evil, creepy design, probably has a monologue somewhere. But the truth is, it's a portrait of what happens when you spend your whole life at war with yourself. When you decide the worst part of you needs to be destroyed instead of understood. When you let the voice of shame convince you that fighting yourself is the same as surviving. The one below all cannot create anything, and neither can the voice at 3 a.m. Neither can inherited shame. Neither can the part of you that sounds like your worst enemy. They have no power of their own. They only have what you give them when you're too tired to refuse. The Hulk wins not by being cured, not by becoming something else, but by becoming more fully what he actually is, by integrating, by accepting every piece of himself, including the rage, including the grief, including the child who learned to disappear, to survive. When Bruce stops destroying the Hulk, the one below all loses its hand. That's not a comic book ending. That's the only ending that was ever true. If you want to read this for yourself, and you should, start with Immortal Hulk by Ewing and Joe Bennett. It's a horror comic that becomes a story about healing. It's the most serious examination of trauma and self-acceptance that Marvel has ever published. It's also genuinely terrifying and occasionally features a monster eating someone's head. So you'll be fine. Start at issue number 1 and just go. Al Ewing took the most exhausted character in superhero comics, a character people had written off as a one-note anger machine, and hid something extraordinary inside him. A story about what it means to stop fighting yourself, and about what it means to look at the worst voice you've ever heard and say, "You are not me. You were never me." The one below all has no hands of its own, but it's been using ours for years. And the whole point, the entire point of this character, this comic, this story, is that you can always, always choose to put it down. This is why I love comics, and you should too.